Okay, ladies and gentlemen, would like to get started where we left off. General Thibault's presentation was extremely interesting, deserved of an opportunity to take questions from the audience. But I think it would be interesting, Colonel Matt Anderson suggested that it might be interesting to see how many members of the Inter-American Defense Board are actually here at the moment. And it's probably, why don't you stand up if you would, please? Fantastic, look at this, yes. Thank you very much, thank you very much. This is an awesome group. This is sort of like one of your council meetings. So I'll let the general take the questions, field the questions, and we'll go for about 10 minutes. And then we'll take a short break and put the last panel on the stage. General?
Sí, señor.
Sir Bob Pellegrin, U.S. Army South. Excellent briefing, giving me a lot of insight. One of the questions I had, sir, was you mentioned raising the profile of the Heath. My question is, if you can give us an example of what the board did. Perhaps, I know you weren't here, maybe you don't have insight, but what did the board do during Haiti? And if you had to do it over again, what would they do now versus what they did or failed to do?
Thanks, Bob. I think Haiti probably, in terms of really reflecting on the potential of the board, led to some of the recent work in the Secretariat in terms of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief in particular. To recognize that there is a need at the level of the OAS to provide information about situations that are happening in the Hemisphere, in this particular case a major natural disaster, and then to look at helping to, as a very minimum, service the information needs, to really look at the opportunities for facilitating collaboration or cooperation between nations, to provide information to decision makers at the OAS, and certainly in the context of enhancing military response to disasters, recognizing that there's always a need for organizations who could be helping to help. So during the actual disaster in Haiti, from what I understand, and I wasn't there was a group of nations in the contact group in the OAS that had formed under the political leadership, that the IEDB actually formed at that time an information cell in the OAS facilities itself to really help provide additional information. And there was reports that were provided to the contact group of nations. So I guess the issue, as we kind of look at this kind of scenario for us, is to say it should be part of really what the IDB can offer to the nations, and certainly it's the essence of what we're trying to do in terms of using the operational experience of the IDB, the network that we have, to actually service the needs of the OAS member states, to help in military coordination of response with the needs of a nation, with the supply of military capabilities, and that exercise that we just had together with U.S. Southcom FAHUM in the Inter-American Defense Board is part, really, I think, of us taking a more proactive, visible leadership role in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Matt, is there anything else you'd want to add to that?
No, sir, you might just mention the CONI and the pouring of the new IED plan.
Right. So the two concepts, I guess, that we've had additionally to really contribute to information sharing is to treat the Secretariat, which is really our core capability, as the Centro de Asesoramiento y Manejo de Información. Wow, that's good. And really as an information sharing piece to link up with a delegate from that nation, with the other nations that would be contributing nations, to really provide the situational awareness, and then to use the Council of Delegates really as a core team to sort of complement the information sharing and then provide that advice to the OAS and to contribute to the OAS processes dealing with major scenarios and disasters. Any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Vanessa Savis. I'm just curious how or if the IADB interacts with other international organizations like the UN, for example.
Thank you. I've actually written a letter to the UN military advisor to make contact and to really suggest that as a regional organization dealing with military and security affairs, that under the rubric really of the United Nations approach for dealing with capacity building, confidence, security building measures in the hemisphere, considering that we have a UN mission going on in the hemisphere under MINUSTA, which has many of our troop contributing nations coming from the hemisphere, that it would be good for us to actually enter into some at least exploratory meetings with the UN about how we would actually connect. So the answer is right now we're doing relatively very little with them, with the exception of under the context of regional organizations that have responsibilities under the UN system, international system for reporting on things like confidence, security building measures, etc. So we feed the OAS. The OAS feeds to the UN as an example of that. So it's more of an indirect piece at this point. I think that as it pertains to us learning from other organizations, whether it be in Europe, whether it be looking at Asia, looking at how they're dealing with cooperative security and defense in their own areas, it would also be of use to us to connect to some of the other regional organizations in the world to see how they are doing their business. And I think that also is a little bit of making sure that we're not too insular just here in the Americas, that we're actually broadening our thinking, looking for creative, innovative ways of cooperation and facilitating really the work that we have to do. Otros? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Gina Costante from the U.S. Department of State, Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement. Ambassador Blackwell spoke yesterday pretty eloquently about his multidimensional security initiative and the ideas he has about that. I wonder if there are areas of intersection between the IADB and multidimensional security.
Thank you. Yes. Next. Oh. Really coincident with the Inter-American Defense Board becoming an entity of the Organization of the American States was with a view to really saying how is it that we take the capacity and potential of this board with what it represents and integrate it within the context of the program's priorities of the Organization of American States and under the pillar of security, of course, within the context of the concepts of multidimensional security that he spoke about yesterday and that have been part of what we've been speaking about here in terms of 10 years after the special conference. I'd say, honestly speaking, for us in the Council of Delegates, this remains work really that we're still feeling out. In some respects, 70 years for the IADB since we were created, and 6 years since we've become an entity of the OAS, and it's still a relatively new relationship. So the work of the Secretariat, working with the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security, our Secretariat and the board working with the Secretariat of Multidimensional Security is to look really at just how we do that, how it is we take our programs and our activities and support really their programs, whether it be CCAD, CICTE, whether it be working with CIFTA. Mine action is a good area. So mine action under the OAS structure is under ICMA, which is, what does it stand for? Acción Integral contra Minas. So the OAS has the overall lead under the Multidimensional Security Secretariat, and we're in support of that. And that's a bit of the model, I think, that we see ourselves playing. So it's an issue of working closely together with the Secretariat to take tasks on that fit within our statute and our mandate, and to make sure that we're supportive of the overall program priorities and activities. And I think that right now we have a request for services from the Multidimensional Security Secretariat on the experience of the armed forces in Central America, actually across the hemisphere, in dealing with assistance to civil authorities, law enforcement authorities in combating crime and the like. And this is really taking stock of best practices and the experience and how they do that, what are some of the lessons learned. So it's an example of using the board in support of the multidimensional security program priorities that we have in the hemisphere. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, General. Colonel Mike Davis from the Inter-American Defense College. I'm the academic program coordinator. So I just wanted to, on this same theme, ask that you maybe speak about the fact that the college, as your educational arm, has also offered seminars in these areas, and for the past 2 years, we've supported directly the OAS Committee on Hemispheric Security with special seminar topics where we've spoke on them, and I'd like you to give more information about that to the group.
Thanks very much. In fact, it wasn't, I appreciate you mentioning it, and it is an oversight on my part to really not have mentioned that, beyond the year-long program that the Inter-American Defense College delivers for its students, it has this capacity to offer seminars, and seminars not only in the context of that student, but seminars which are then offered up to the member states to participate in. And so just recently we had a seminar on trafficking with small arms, for example. Last year was on non-proliferation. And these are actual specific examples of where the OAS member states have problems, issues, priorities, and to say to the board through its college to please organize a joint seminar which is then delivered to the Inter-American Defense College students as well as the members of the Hemispheric Security Committee as a joint opportunity to reflect on problems that are of importance to the hemisphere. And in this next set of resolutions, we're hopeful that we're going to have a seminar which is going to be focused on one of the conclusions from last year's seminar on trafficking of small arms, which is dealing with border security and dealing with borders. So this is an example, really, of us being responsive to the priorities and requirements of the nations in the hemisphere on problems which really are pertinent to us. And I think another great example of the value added, really, of the IADC and its programs for the hemisphere and our nations. I see that one more. Matt, no, sorry, I can't take anything from Matt. Matt, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, is our Director of Advisory Services in the Secretariat, also an elected position of the board, and just signed on for another 2 years. Thank you for the support of the United States and for you, Matt.
Well, sir, thank you. Sir, I just wanted to take this opportunity for a shameless plug to the Inter-American Defense Board websites, the Inter-American Defense College websites. You can find them if you Google them. I believe the addresses are iadb.geed.org or iadc.geed.org. And along with that, please also do sign up for the chat room that we've established through the All Partners Access Network. This audience obviously is very interested in defense and security, and I would encourage you to sign up for that chat room through APAN. We have a chat group for the Inter-American Defense Board. Once you've signed up for it, you get periodic announcements for events that are happening in the hemisphere, the board's calendar of activities, and the college's calendar of activities. So shameless plug, sir. My apologies for the paid announcement, but there you have it. Thank you very much.
Well, I think we're at the end of my time, so thank you very much for your attention earlier, for the questions, and appreciate the opportunity once again for the IDB to be participating in this year's colloquium. Thank you.
Please join me. Dr. Manwaring, could you bring your panel to the stage, please, and we'll move directly into the final panel. There are 2 sets of stairs.
Where's Arturo?
Here he comes.
We can't start with. Press the button. Does that work? Okay, good afternoon. Very good. Thank you. The diehards are still here. I'm pleased to know that there are still a few left. And even though they're all from the IADB. Okay, well anyway, it's my privilege this afternoon to chair this august panel. The panel is a reflection of the idea of alliance, partnership, coalition, whatever you want to call it, and that it's not an all-American thing. We have Arturo Contreras from Chile. We've got Admiral Greenwood from Canada, and then the rest of us gringos. The panel, starting with Margaret Daly Hayes, is quite distinguished. Margaret, I remember being introduced to her several hundred years ago. But she was a child prodigy, so it's okay. By Gabriel Marcella. Some of you know Gabriel. And she's probably the second person that I knew that personally that wrote something that I could understand. And so I'm looking forward to having her tell us what she's just written for us. Arturo, I remember way back several years ago, maybe not that many hundred years ago, but several years ago, while he was still in uniform, and he was wearing this immaculate white and gold Chilean official dress uniform. It's just magnificent uniform. And he stood up and taught me about the idea of development, democracy, sustainable peace, this sort of thing. How does it come about? Money? No. More money? No. How about security? I learned slow. Colonel McNaughton, as you can tell by the ribbons he's wearing, has been around a bit. But you also know that he's spent quite a bit of time in Brazil and is only the second person in this audience to speak Portuguese yesterday. And Admiral Greenwood, I've got to just say one thing about Admiral Greenwood, is my wife's mother was a Greenwood, and I really liked her. And so he can't be all bad, okay? So that's the group, and we will we'll start with Margaret. We have about 12 to 15 minutes each. If we go beyond that, the audience may get a little restless, so I'll try and exert the power of the chair to keep everything in order. And I take it, even though we got a late start, we will get our full 100 minutes. I hope you do. Okay. And well, thank you very much. Margaret, you're on.
Thank you, Max. I think my job is easier because it's hard to think of much new that can be said after the day and a half that we've been talking here. But I want to make, my assignment was really to address the tools of U.S. defense cooperation in the region, but I want to put those in context. And first begin, we've talked about the major themes: partnership, collaboration, interagency. All of those are key to the way we do business in the region and the way we will do business in the future. But I think we have to undertake this partnership and collaboration imperative with a recognition that one of the premises of this seminar, the Declaration of Multidimensional Security of 2003, is perhaps a fragile compromise. Yesterday, Adam Blackwell observed that there had been little effort to interpret the way forward in terms of implementing the multidimensional security declaration. I'm concerned that if we assume that the countries who signed up to this complex list of security challenges were committed to addressing those challenges in a hemispheric way, that we're mistaken. Multidimensional security was fashionable at the time, and it's very good that we're now, 10 years later, beginning to address how do we implement this very complex concept. And I think there's some obstacles that we have to take into consideration. One is there really has not been agreement on this definition of security. There's a lot of debate about what multidimensional security means on all those dimensions. There's not been a recognition until very recently that all of these issues are kind of related one to another, that we're really talking about a network of relations with all of the complexity that entails. This is a complex adaptive system, as it were. We have not really gotten into the definition of collaboration. What does that really entail? And finally, I think one of the premises of the long discussion on redefining security in the region, which was very carefully stated by one of the originators of the dialogue with the Committee on Hemispheric Security, Ambassador Patiño Mayer of Argentina, was that we require a cordial civilian, i.e. political military relationship. And that cordial relationship remains a challenge for collaboration in much of the hemisphere. And finally, I think we need to recognize that in order to implement this declaration, there needs to be strong political will. And that is not necessarily present everywhere. Perhaps then we need to build on those regions where there is political will. And I'll come back to this theme in a bit. Jay Cope mentioned this morning in his presentation that in terms of the U.S. commitment, we face a number of challenges in adapting what we have been doing to a new environment. To keep with the tradition of citing famous people who are long gone, I think it's Einstein who argued that it's insanity to keep doing the same thing over and over and to expect a different outcome. We need this new vision of partnership with the region, one that is built on respect and on trust amongst partners. We need to begin thinking of support to partners and coordination with partners as opposed to security assistance, that old model that Jay defined. We need to work with partners so that they can interoperate and work with each other, with us, with the United Nations, with NATO, and all of the different kinds of activities that we have described. And in order to change the way we do business, we're going to have to begin by evaluating the results of the current programs that we undertake. And I want to skip to that part. We need to look at the results of our investments in the region, of our assistance programs. Too much of our cooperative agenda, I believe, is driven by last year's program, last year's op plan for our exercises and so forth. Too much is driven by doing a lot of things, as opposed to doing something that is carefully tailored to the needs of the partner country and that is going to be judged on the results yielded. Likely not yielded in the near term, but rather built over time, which means that we have to have a multi-year approach to measuring progress. We've got to ask, what really happens to exchange students who come to the United States? Some say there's really little impact, that they go back to their countries, they very likely don't do what they learned in the school. They might not be moved into a track where they can use that, or promotion depends on an internal patronage system. And I recall when I was working on a project with the Air Force, interviewing a student at Air University who, in response to this question, what are you going to take back from this year you're spending at Air University, recognized that he would not have much opportunity to share what he had learned here in the United States at all in his near future career. We need to look at our IMET program and perhaps rather than as in one country that is complaining, the IMET is dominated by the old service benefactors of the program and doesn't want to open up or change, and describes, the annual trip of the retiring admirals under exchange program. Now, what's the result of the outcome of that particular investment? Because I'm curious about defense resource management in this, I looked at I asked for a reporting of Latin American students who had gone to our Defense Resource Management Institute at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey. The DERMI, as it's called, operates 2-week, 2-month, and 1-year-long courses on defense resource management, and sometimes does mobile courses, sends its faculty down into the region. For these two countries that I chose, in the 44 years of this institute's existence, they had sent about one student every 2 years. In one country, both of these countries are modern, very capable, forward-thinking countries. In one country, all of the students had come from the Navy, and there were 22 students. In the other country, there were 22 students who had come to resident courses, mostly the 2-week or 2-month one. 5 of those had been from the MOD, and there had been 2 mobile courses in which 44 students enrolled in each. As an academic, I wonder, the 2-week mobile course, 44 students, how much did any one of those guys really get out of it? I can't find the 5 people who were from the Ministry of Defense in the Ministry of Defense. So we have to ask, is this a poorly understood resource? Are we not marketing it well? Do the participants see value so that they're suggesting, hey, we ought to do that next year and the year after and so forth? Do these large-scale, really short-term contexts produce anything? What has been changed in the administration of defense in the country as a result of any of that? And where on earth are these graduates? Every one of our programs needs to be scrutinized with that kind of, what happened to those people? What result, what outcome was there? We have to be, as Dan Fisk said, we have to be able to defend these programs before Congress. And as the defense budget becomes tighter and tighter, it's going to be harder and harder to defend those before Congress. And we've got to demonstrate to our partners and to ourselves that this is not just doing business as usual, but rather there is some value that is to be gotten from the program. I also believe that we need to look at our security cooperation with a greater civilian-military face, a civil-military face. We need to recognize in the region that the transition in civil-military relations is still incomplete, that there's a lot of mistrust, and I think we need to, and our partners that we work with need also to show that it is possible for the State Department and the Defense Department to work together. We say security assistance is a State Department program. Yeah. We need to get behind, to walk the talk on and demonstrate the potential of civilian-military collaboration. We probably need to rethink how we talk about, quote-unquote, civilian control of the military, because it's not well understood. It's understood in an authority relationship as opposed to a collaborative relationship in the region. As Narcisera, the former Minister of Defense of Spain, has argued that we should talk about Janowit's concept of civil-military relations rather than Huntington's concept of civil-military relations. But we do need to understand, as we look for cooperation and coordination in the region, that the civil-military issue is still an obstacle to hemispheric security. I believe that there's much that we might learn about collaboration and coordination from the NATO experience. Not NATO as an alliance, but the NATO studies and analysis and research experience in which they have looked into and done lots of case studies of NATO and coalition experiences, disaster response experiences, peacekeeping experiences, and so forth, and have built out of that what is called the NATO Network-Enabled Collaboration Maturity Model, right? But frankly, the experience is worth examining, and some of the literature is worth reading, and perhaps provides a guide to how the Inter-American Defense Board might undertake this collection and coordination of lessons learned, experiences in vastly different types of operations in the region. It certainly offers an example of civilian, military, academic coordination and collaboration in the production of these documents. Now, I will close with some comments on the Inter-American system and our premises about that. I believe, and again, it's a lot easier to do business in small groups, face-to-face, than it is in big groups. If we are able to achieve consensus and action at the sub-regional level, Central America, the Caribbean, perhaps the Pacific, South America, Mercosur, etc., if cooperation in those groups permits the development of clusters of interagency collaborators that can come together when needed, those groups can share what they have learned outside of their region, but we can build upon the strength of those sub-regions. And those sub-regions can operate as the clusters in a network that will come together when necessary, but doesn't need to always be engaged all the time on everybody's set of issues. We understand that collaboration is going to improve our situational awareness, our information sharing, our understanding of new courses of action. We need to be able to emphasize the outcomes of collaboration in that respect. There is a lot that we can draw upon from what individual countries have done in terms of lessons learned, but I believe we really need to emphasize and perhaps cultivate amongst ourselves, each country, the tradition of doing lessons learned and sharing those at the sub-regional, amongst services initially perhaps, with ministries of defense. I'm reminded often, and Arturo will be angry if I don't mention Ambassador Camilo Ospina's remark after the 2007 Peru earthquake, in which countries found it difficult to figure out how they could come together to support the Peruvians in the response to the disaster. And his question was to the Inter-American Defense College at the time, where are the protocols that will guide us as a region in responding to each other? And we're still looking for those protocols in the area of disaster response. This is an urgent agenda, as we need to win on this, and it's going to take that really absent still commitment of political will from partner leaders, from defense ministers and others, if we are going to achieve that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You didn't kick me under the table.
I was getting ready to find my cane. Arturo, you're on.
Thank you.
Cut 5 minutes from the presentation time.
First than all, I want to give my thanks for this invitation to Jay, Luigi, and Max. And I want to give my apologies because I will make my presentation in Spanish. This is the last step of the project of the Institute for National Strategic Studies, and I try to not avoid to permit me committed mistake in the message. For that reason, I will talk in Spanish, and especially because I don't want to say things politically correct with your authorization, my general. I will abuse of my condition of, as Max said, now I am a civilian. I am not a military. And I will use the power of the tie and without restrictions. Este es el título del panel, Adaptando los instrumentos militares a las nuevas condiciones. ¿Qué significa esto en la práctica? ¿Cómo se cambia? ¿Qué significa en la práctica? Significa la necesidad de efectuar un diagnóstico exacto de por qué las cosas no están funcionando aparentemente bien. ¿Y por qué no están funcionando aparentemente bien luego de 10 años de transcurrida la Conferencia Especial de Seguridad? En primer lugar, porque hay un concepto de seguridad multidimensional ambiguo. ¿Qué significa multidimensional? ¿Cuáles son los alcances de la multidimensionalidad? ¿Cuál es el rol que juega la defensa en este concepto de seguridad multidimensional? Esa decisión, esa definición no es una definición militar, no es tampoco una definición académica, es una definición política. Y no es lo mismo preguntarnos primero qué es el huevo o la gallina. Lo militar, la defensa, siempre es un instrumento al servicio de la política, del decisor político. Eso en primer lugar. Si no tenemos una definición en ese nivel, como presentaba también ayer el embajador Blackwell, el rol de la defensa en este contexto multidimensional también se torna difuso. Y al ser un concepto difuso, nos empezamos a encontrar con problemas. Por ejemplo, ¿en qué nivel y en qué ámbitos estamos hablando de la multifuncionalidad de la defensa? Es decir, una multidimensionalidad adaptable a las diferentes formas de guerra posmoderna o una multidimensionalidad adaptable a las diferentes circunstancias o condiciones de la seguridad. Son niveles y ámbitos distintos. Por supuesto, en este ámbito, cuando sale la Conferencia Especial de Seguridad de México en 2003, todavía estábamos, como señalaba Margaret, en un momento de discusión de relaciones civiles militares. La transición probablemente a eso obedezca esta ambigüedad, pero en definitiva no puede existir una dicotomía, una divergencia entre los objetivos nacionales de seguridad, o mejor dicho, la seguridad nacional de los estados, porque el Estado sigue siendo el principal actor de los procesos internacionales, y la seguridad internacional. Y esa convergencia representa el gran desafío que nosotros tenemos que enfrentar. Pero para ello necesitamos estados sólidos, estados que se hayan consolidado institucionalmente, legítimos y en condiciones de representar y materializar las necesidades de seguridad de la población. Porque la legitimidad pasa porque el Estado esté al servicio de las personas y no las personas al servicio del Estado. Eso es lo que diferencia a las democracias de las dictaduras. Y nuestro paradigma en la región se llama democracia. En ese contexto, el caso de estudio que se me ha pedido, lo pensé. El general Ospina ya se había apropiado del tema de Colombia, ya hemos hablado del tema de Centroamérica. Nuestra región, el hemisferio, es un caso de estudio en sí mismo. Y es un caso de estudio por varias razones. Primero, porque el gran desafío que se nos presenta, como señalaba ahora mi general Thibault, es cómo operacionalizar estratégicamente este concepto de seguridad multidimensional, estableciendo claramente un análisis de contexto, cuál es la situación, cuál es la relación de los fines y de los medios con los cuales queremos lograr ciertos objetivos. Si nosotros no enfrentamos este tema, si no establecemos precisamente para cada una de las áreas del concepto de multidimensionalidad, cualquier estrategia que nosotros pretendamos desarrollar en la región, en términos de colaboración, y aquí entro en el tema que a Margaret le plantea, a mí no me gusta hablar de relaciones civiles-militares, es un tema sociológico. Yo prefiero hablar de una relación político-militar, donde el político define, establece los objetivos y fija los medios. Y la relación civil-militar se da en el ámbito de trabajo interagencial entre las instituciones militares, las instituciones de la defensa y todas las instituciones de la sociedad civil y las instituciones políticas del Estado o del sistema internacional. Y eso hace una enorme diferencia. En este aspecto, nosotros podemos partir de una base. América definió claramente que los 3 criterios básicos contenidos en el consenso de Washington eran el punto de partida para una cooperación efectiva y eficiente. Tenemos muchas Américas, América Central, América del Norte, América Insular, América del Sur, etcétera. Podemos buscar otros tipos de regionalismo, de orden cultural, de orden ideológico, pero en definitiva hay 3 puntos básicos en los cuales los intereses y los objetivos nacionales se empiezan a concretar. La democracia como forma de gobierno, el libre comercio como vía para el desarrollo y el respeto a los derechos humanos como una ética política. Y en ese sentido, hay que preguntarse si estamos avanzando o estamos retrocediendo. En mi opinión, hay síntomas de regresión en alguno de estos 3 aspectos en la región. Ahora, ¿cómo operacionalizamos el tema? Contestemos de lleno la pregunta que Margaret nos planteaba en su exposición. ¿Cómo materializamos esto? En mi opinión, 3 son los aspectos que dominan nuestra vida o dominan nuestra condición de seguridad en el nivel hemisférico. Primero, estrategias que nos permitan conservar la paz y la solución pacífica de las controversias. Estrategias que nos permitan cooperar a la seguridad internacional y que nos permitan cooperar a la estabilidad internacional. Y todo ello centrado en estos valores que representan el consenso de Washington. Pero nada de esto puede materializarse si nosotros no satisfacemos las necesidades de consolidación de Estado. Hoy día, lo que está en riesgo en muchas regiones de nuestras Américas es precisamente el Estado, que está siendo víctima del crimen internacional organizado, que está más organizado que muchos Estados. Y en consecuencia, la debilidad, la ilegitimidad en la acción del Estado para enfrentar estas nuevas amenazas multidimensionales se transforma en la clave del problema. Por lo tanto, voy a centrar mi análisis y mi propuesta concretamente en el actor principal. El Estado se caracteriza por representar el monopolio de la fuerza. Es el pilar, es el monopolio de la fuerza legítima de la sociedad. Sin embargo, también hay un segundo nivel, o una segunda definición, o una segunda condición, si ustedes quieren, que dice que la legitimidad del Estado está dada en función de lo que representa para la sociedad a cuyo servicio se encuentra. Este árbol, este pilar, es el Estado, que tiene una seguridad como función principal, a cuyo extremo la condición más fuerte, la condición más dura, la condición más tangible es la defensa. En ese aspecto, nosotros vamos a encontrar de que el Estado no puede abdicar de 3 funciones básicas, que son la seguridad contra catástrofe, todo tipo de catástrofe. Tenemos un enorme espacio para poder cooperar en esa materia. Yo adhiero a lo que decía el general Thibault, al grupo de los optimistas. Podemos hacer muchas cosas en este ámbito. Tenemos la seguridad interna, todo lo que se llama la seguridad ciudadana hoy día, que en algunos casos se plantea en forma ambigua. La estamos militarizando, la estamos desnaturalizando. ¿Qué está pasando con la seguridad ciudadana? ¿Está cumpliendo el Estado su rol? Y esa seguridad interna tiene riesgos de conflictividad social y tiene a su vez riesgos de las amenazas de origen transnacional, que son las más importantes hoy día y que reclaman del Estado una activa participación en el potenciamiento y el desarrollo de la seguridad exterior. Una seguridad exterior que le permita enfrentar todo tipo de amenazas, todas aquellas que plantea la seguridad multidimensional, pero que no significa que sean un problema militar. Como todos los fenómenos políticos modernos, la guerra no es un fenómeno militar. La guerra es un fenómeno político. El conflicto es un fenómeno social. Cuando se asocian estos fenómenos a los militares o a las armas, estamos cometiendo un error de diagnóstico. Si los conflictos fueran producto de las fuerzas militares o de la defensa, la solución sería muy fácil. Eliminamos la defensa y se acaban los conflictos y vivimos en una sociedad en paz. Si los conflictos se produjeran porque existen armas, eliminamos las armas y se acaban los conflictos. ¿Qué solución más simple? Pero sabemos por la experiencia histórica que esto no es así. 20 minutos apenas. Sí. Ya, entonces nos vamos más rápido. Yo había malinterpretado la hora. En definitiva, nuestro gran desafío está en este punto en que se trasvasijan las 3 dimensiones de la seguridad que tiene el Estado. Y esto crea interdependencias en un mundo globalizado actual entre lo internacional y lo interno. La legitimidad exterior es tan importante como la legitimidad interna, como la que planteaba el general Ospina en el día de hoy en la mañana. La tremenda dificultad se empieza a presentar en esto. Fíjense bien. La seguridad interna. Todo tipo de las actividades del crimen internacional organizado. Pero es completamente distinto a la corrupción, a la debilidad institucional, a la exclusión social y la extrema pobreza, que forman parte, estas 2 dimensiones, de la seguridad multidimensional. ¿Cómo actuamos en ella? ¿Cómo nos desempeñamos en ella? Y la seguridad internacional abarca todas las anteriores. Por lo tanto, estamos en presencia de una red de amenazas que no pueden ser vistas desde una perspectiva exclusivamente policial o militar. Tiene que ser asumida con la visión integral propia del Estado. Ahora bien, ¿cómo cooperamos? 10 minutos. ¿Cómo cooperamos? El tema, a mi juicio, es relativamente simple. Voy a ponerle solamente 2 ejemplos y ustedes lo van a entender. En primer lugar, ¿qué puede aportar la defensa? ¿A qué? Primera pregunta. ¿Al crimen organizado, al tráfico de blancas, a la proliferación? ¿Qué capacidades debe desarrollar la defensa? Requiere definiciones políticas. ¿Cómo integrar culturas y formas de trabajo distintas? América Latina desconfía un país del otro, porque todavía nos movemos en términos de hipótesis de guerra vecinales o hipótesis de conflictos vecinales. América del Norte desconfía de América Latina y América Latina no cree en Estados Unidos. Es decir, la fragmentación es global. ¿Cómo superamos esto? ¿De quién es la responsabilidad? ¿Son los militares los que disuaden o son los estados los que disuaden? ¿Son los militares los que cooperan o son los estados los que cooperan? Son respuestas que son muy importantes. ¿Cómo diseñamos estrategias ahora? Muy simple. Toda la primera parte, crimen organizado, tráfico de drogas, tráfico de personas, todo lo que es la manifestación del crimen organizado, requiere de un diagnóstico. La situación de cada país varía de un lugar a otro, de una definición de un concepto estratégico que nos permita enfrentar en forma organizada este tema. Primero, en relación al crimen organizado, ¿cuáles son las instituciones que están involucradas? ¿Cuáles son las metas, los plazos y las intenciones del gobierno? ¿Qué efectos quiere lograr con su forma de actuar? ¿Cuáles son los recursos? ¿Cuál es el desarrollo de capacidades que nos van a permitir ser exitosos en la lucha contra esto? Hay que crear sistemas de coordinación multisectoriales, porque hay muchas instituciones involucradas. Y lo militar probablemente es una más. Y hay que tener un sistema de control de gestión estratégica. En ese sentido, ¿qué puede aportar la defensa? Tiene mucho que aportar la defensa, tiene que aportar en sistemas de gestión estratégica. Se supone que somos especialistas en materia de conducción y de evaluación, si las cosas las estamos haciendo bien o mal. Tiene que haber el aporte organizativo, la experiencia en inteligencia, etcétera. Ustedes comprenderán que no es lo mismo la inteligencia orientada al crimen organizado que la inteligencia orientada a la satisfacción de las necesidades de seguridad nacional, exterior, y la inteligencia orientada a satisfacer necesidades de desarrollo, de un desarrollo económico sostenible y sustentable. ¿A quién le informamos? Necesitamos estructuras especiales. ¿Las tenemos? ¿Hemos superado verdaderamente las desconfianzas entre el mundo civil y el mundo militar desde la época de la posguerra fría? En muchas partes no. En muchas partes los militares no participan del proceso de toma de decisiones. Son hechos. ¿Y cuáles son nuestros canales de cooperación internacional? Porque todas estas amenazas, si bien es cierto, se materializan en el ámbito interno, son internacionales. Y por cierto, hay que establecer principios de la conducción que nos permitan ser efectivos. Apliquen ustedes esto mismo de cómo se diseña una política o una estrategia para enfrentar la seguridad multidimensional en el ámbito ahora de la exclusión social y de los factores de déficit de desarrollo social. Obviamente el rol de los militares es distinto, el rol de la inteligencia es distinto, la asignación de recursos es distinta y el sistema, la estructura es también distinta, o debe serlo. En consecuencia, ¿a quién le informamos? En la otra estrategia le informábamos a un Consejo de Seguridad Nacional, por citar un ejemplo. Aquí debiera ser un Consejo económico de Desarrollo Económico y Social. Porque la naturaleza de las amenazas es esa. Y establecer canales de cooperación internacional. La pregunta es, ¿lo estamos haciendo como debiéramos hacerlo? Yo creo, cerrando el tema, and giving you my apologies because I am explaining this in Spanish, because mi querido amigo es mi maestro, lo he seguido durante muchos años en lo que es la lógica estratégica, y aquí no se trata de hablar de teorías, de lo que dijo Boffré, de lo que dijo Clausewitz, se trata de crear nuestra propia lógica estratégica para enfrentar nuestros propios problemas, porque los problemas de hoy no son ni los de Clausewitz, ni son los de Mahan, ni son los de los otros estrategas. Y por eso le doy las disculpas a mi amigo Max. En definitiva, fortalecimiento institucional. Si los estados no se fortalecen, y eso no hay que confundirlo con autoritarismo, estados fuertes, que se hagan su propio diagnóstico, que saquen su corrupción, que saquen los elementos que los limitan y que le permiten ser débiles frente al crimen organizado. La seguridad es un problema de Estado, no es un problema de instituciones. Legitimidad y consenso político, todo lo que dijo en la mañana, de alguna manera, el general Ospina. Muchísimas gracias, mi querido amigo. Y eso que me salté unas pocas.